Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Galaxy of Heroes video. Today I'm going to be talking about 10 of the best early game Zetas you can choose to apply. And I thought of doing this just because I'm always strapped on Zetas, even at a late point in the game, and I've seen plenty of people pick the wrong Zeta. So I'm going to go over 10 of the best Zetas we have in the game for an early player, and 10 that you might think about applying, but really should avoid. Anyway, if you like the video, give a thumb up, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And first we're looking at is Darth Vader, and I'm going to be talking about things in a different order than I usually do. Usually I'll go worst to best, but today I'm going to go in the order of priority I think you should think about applying them. And first being with Darth Vader, he's easy to acquire early and get at least unlock at 4 stars. Merciless Massacre is one we're looking at. You know it's good when it has this much text in it. Basically, it makes him a killing machine. You take a million turns in a row. When this came out, I thought I was misreading the kit because I was like, this guy's going to take 5, 6, 7, 8 turns in a row possibility. You could loop it, especially under Palpatine lead. So it's just an insanely powerful ability. It gets his damage through the roof, works super well under Palpatine. And as a bonus, do not apply his leadership or his unique early on. They're fine. I have them for later, but usually early on you want to run him under Palpatine lead. There's solo potential, but just try to minimize redundant leadership Zetas if you can. And the unique is good, makes him immune to turn meter reduction, recovers health and protection, so it's great for banners. But in the early game economy, you probably want to hold off on it. Next, as I mentioned before, we're looking at Palpatine lead, and this is actually the first Zeta I ever applied in my life, and I did not regret it. It's not like Darth Vader's, it's very short, but it's very effective. When a debuff on an enemy expires, Empire and Sith allies gain 5% turn meter. Into the kit, there's already built-in active turn meter gain. If you inflict a debuff in your Empire, you're going to get 20% turn meter, so that means Darth Vader does his Force Crush and he gets the full turn. But this just expands on that so much. That means anytime they cleanse a debuff, if it expires, if it runs out, and with Darth Vader on the team, there's tons of damage over time. So this is going to supercharge an Empire or Sith team. It's super flexible, super worthwhile. However, the unique is something you should probably avoid. I have it. I only got it probably like a year ago. It's good, it has extra protection, and he gains max protection for inflicting shock, but it's not an early game priority, so just do your favor and get the leader first. Third in line is Bossk. Bossk is an amazing bounty hunter leader. I still think he's the best. I think plenty of people would disagree, but his lead Zeta is what you want to get whenever an enemy suffers or resists a debuff. So anytime there's a debuff attempted at all bounty hunters allies are recovering 5% health and protection. And this is crazy. This is just so much recovery. You don't even need potency. You don't need to inflict the debuff to recover. It's just constantly keeping your whole team topped off. Bounty hunters are definitely a very strong early game team. He has probably the best overall ship in the game, so it's not wasted. However, you want to skip his unique, at least for a while. It's not like a late game Zeta. It's kind of making him have a permataunt, which is useful, but definitely get the lead before that. Number 4 is Piet, and I am basing this around my own farming guide, what I recommend people to go to early. And you might look at my guide and say, oh, I don't see Piet on that first page of Journey Guide Farming. But I do have him kind of higher priority in the node farming. And just because a character isn't necessary to unlock a Journey Guide character doesn't mean it's not an early priority. And for Piet, he has a completely transformative Zeta, makes the Imperial Trooper team shine. It's called the Emperor's Trap. Whenever an ally takes a turn, attacks out of turn, uses ability or something like that, you gain a stack of Emperor's Trap. And there's some bonuses with Darth Vader, but don't worry about that. And Emperor's Trap itself isn't overwhelming, 6% offense and potency per stack, but it can stack infinitely. And with Veer's lead, anytime anyone gains a buff, they're getting 10% turn meter. So everyone is gaining a buff anytime anyone takes a turn on that Imperial Trooper team with this Zeta. So that's where that turn meter turn really kicks into gear. And even at low gear, you can make this Imperial Trooper team run circles around an opponent. However, while this is a Zeta I applied, do not apply it anytime soon in the early game. It's nice, but it's very situational, and just don't do it. Number 5 priority we got on the list is Jolie, and it's his special ability that looks pretty bad. It's It was pretty overpowered when it came out. It's not as overpowered now. There's a lot of revive prevention out there, but it is insane early game. All Jedi allies revive at 80% health and get crit immunity for 5 turns, which is also very nice. So he can be the last one left as long as he survives. If you have this Zeta, he can bring them all back. And better yet, it's a high cooldown, but he's reducing his cooldowns with his basic. He's higher priority than like Jedi Knight Revan, because you're probably going to have him before, and he's going to be super useful in a Jedi team no matter how early you're using it. Next up, number 6 priority. This one kind of surprised me, and it'll probably surprise some people that I recommend it, but it's the Mandalorian, the OG Mandalorian's unique. So naturally, he's getting 30% turn meter when he scores a critical hit. But if you have a Zeta, you gain 15% turn meter for the whole team on a critical hit from him. And given the amount of mass assists that the Bounty Hunter team has between what's his face, Bosk and Grief Karga, you're going to get a lot of turn meter for the team, which you don't really think of as a turn meter train, but it can kind of get there with this. So definitely a good priority, and don't apply to the leader. I don't even have that yet, so just stick to that unique and it'll supercharge your Bounty Hunter team. Number 7 priority I'm looking at, and some people will probably disagree because they don't like Geonosians anymore. I'm still a fan of Geonosians for early game because they have an overpowered leadership with plus 15,000 max health and max protection. You don't even need to develop the team much to punch above their weight. And the unique summons the Brute, Geonosian Brute, right away at the start of the encounter, and it doesn't even have to be a full Geonosian team. He doesn't have to be in the lead. It could just be a tag onto any other team, and you have a built-in pre-taunt there. You can summon him with the conscription ability, but you really want to save that for a revive and when you need to heal in a pinch. You don't want to be using that first turn. So Queen's Will get you a 6-man team right off the bat, which early on is pretty powerful. Number 8 priority is Idenburcio, and even though she's not needed for an unlock, she's a great early game team. She can lead pretty much any Imperial troopers that don't have a leader tag and are Dark Trooper. What the Zeta does, it turns her into a zombie if she has any active Imperial trooper allies, as long as you met the condition at the beginning for all non-lead, non-Dark Trooper. She's going to recover with 100% health and protection. But she's better than zombie because she's an offensive threat, and this is really going to help you. Especially with a lot of PvE stuff, like getting through nodes, dark side nodes, cantina nodes, galactic war. If you have her, you might be pretty far along in those anyway, but still very strong and still great even late in the game. Number 9 priority is Padme. If you play your cards right, you can unlock her pretty early, and she's great even at 5 stars as a leader. You should have some Galactic Republic allies or characters to throw under her, and unlock a lot of leaderships that I've recommended before. What I'm recommending for her, it's kind of both. The leadership is amazing. When you have protection up, you resist all debuffs and can't be crit, which is insane. It's like permanent tenacity up, but better, and crit immunity. But also her unique, when you're attacked out of turn, the protection up you gain goes from 10% to 40% with the unique. Overall, I'd probably do the lead first, but the unique helps translate more protection up into courage, which does tons of damage no matter how weak your character is. It's all based on the percent health of the enemy you're attacking. So both are super strong. She's still a good early game leader. She gets displaced a bit by Jedi Master Kenobi, but that's way down the line if you're a beginner player. Number 10 priority, and probably better than a lot of the ones named before it, it just takes a little bit of time to unlock him, is Jedi Knight Revan. He is incredible. And probably the one you want to start with is the lead. It's just an enormous amount of text, but it adds 20% protection recovery for taking out of turns, 35% more damage for attacking out of turns. It's like reducing max health under bonus protection, which affects like Treya and Nest and stuff like that. And you begin the battle with tenacity up for 1 turn, and that's very important because when I was an early game player, I could beat a Jedi Knight Revan team with Palpatine and Vader, and this is before Merciless Massacre. I could beat them as long as they didn't have that tenacity up at the beginning of the battle. And you think of a Jedi Knight Revan as a hard counter to Empire, so that's definitely the one to start with. But the others are great too. And this adds buff immunity, cooldown increase in stunning when with your direct focus. And then Hero adds immune to stun ability block, and then shares some stats with the rest of the team. Just very strong early game Zetas. And if you unlock Revan faster than any of the other Zetas I talked about, probably prioritize this one. Now to talk about some Zetas to avoid. And Thrawn is a great early game character. He's a nice tool to have in your belt, but he doesn't need any Zetas, and that's actually a bonus. The unique that I actually have is Ebb and Flow, gives some counter chance and tenacity, and reduces turn meter to fractured enemies, but you don't need it. And you don't need his leadership Zeta either early game. You're going to be sticking with Palpatine lead for a long time. Another Zeta, a good Zeta that you probably want to avoid early is Bastille lead. And it's very strong, but you're going to go with Jedi Knight Revan lead after you unlock him and never look back. It adds taunts to tank allies at the beginning of the encounter, and you get 150% tenacity when you have protection of. So it makes the team very hard to debuff, and it is very strong. It was actually the second one I ever applied, but today I wouldn't recommend it because you're going to unlock characters pretty fast, and it's going to be obsoleted very soon, and Zetas are very precious. Another one not to touch with a 10-foot pole, if you're new, is Dark Trooper Zeta. He's an amazing character, but yet he doesn't need the Zeta to work. The Zeta is on his special, and it means if he has less than 3 stacks of Dark Trooper, when he uses it, he can gain an extra stack. Which is nice in a pinch, but definitely Imperial Troopers work the best when you get out in front and stay there, so this is not very vital at all. The next one I'm going to recommend avoiding is Moff Gideon's lead. Now, not too many people apply it, but I've seen beginner players do it, so it's just not good. It's a wall of text, but it only applies in very specific circumstances. If they're all Imperial Remnant, if there's like 2 supports, 2 attackers, 1, something like that, it's not worth it. His Zeta here is pretty good, but this ability does most of what you need it to with just the level 7 ability. And his unique doesn't need a Zeta. This one seems like a Zeta, but it's amazing. It's pretty much nerfing the enemy team's damage permanently until he dies, but you do not need his lead. Next Zeta to avoid is Grandmaster Yoda's lead. Do not apply this lead. I still have not applied the lead. I don't recommend it. It's never going to be used. There's tons of better leaderships for Jedi. Just don't do it. And his special is kind of an honorable mention for early priority. This is what gives you foresight for 2 turns and turn meter gain for living Jedi allies. So it's very strong. It just didn't quite make the list. It is an honorable mention for an early game Zeta. And kind of a group recommendation here, but don't apply other bounty hunter leads early except for Bosk. There's not too many Zetas on bounty hunter leads. There's Jango Fett, there's the Mandalorian, there's Aurra Sing. Just do not give them their leadership Zetas until later on if you have a very specific need for it. Otherwise, just use Bosk the whole way, all the way early game through the mid game. And last but certainly not least, do not apply any Zetas to the Phoenix Squad at all. They are an early game escort. They unlock Palpatine for you and Thrawn. You need them for Thrawn. You can get Palpatine without them, but they're a great 2-for-1, kind of 3-for-1 because you're using Ezra and Kanan to unlock Yoda. But don't give them any Zetas. They're a complete waste. And the only reason I have these 4 at Gear 12 right now is for ships, and I have tons of leftover gear to get to Gear 12. Otherwise, you want to stop gearing them at Gear 8. So don't follow the gear advice here, but follow the Zeta advice. Do not give Phoenix any Zetas. That's it. That's all I got. And as I'm looking at my lonely 8 Zeta mats, I hope you learned something about Zetas. It's a very important research to manage the entire way through the game. Early game is pretty tricky too. If you're a long-time player, I hope you agree. Let me know where you disagree, where someone might want to add an early game Zeta. And again, if you like the video, give a thumb up, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Peace.